The Huawei Nova series is an intriguing line from the Chinese corporation that is largely targeted at younger consumers and has a lower price point. The Huawei Nova 10 Pro adheres to this principle. While adding some extra glitz, it normally contains certain flagship-level features, but downgrades on others. For what it's worth, this Huawei scenario is the same as it has always been with every previous product that has come before it. Instead of the Play Store, you get App Gallery, and any issues you may have previously encountered with App Gallery are still relevant here. Not that there haven't been advancements, in fact, App Gallery is starting to work for me as a respectable substitute. For the majority of people, it isn't yet at the point where switching is worthwhile. Although it's not flawless and I still frequently struggle with some activities, it generally works very well. Although I appreciate the Nova 10 Pro as a smartphone, the software issues can occasionally be challenging to resolve, especially given the price. The Huawei Nova 10 Pro's appearance is attractive, albeit a little extravagant. The phone's front is quite attractive, featuring a sizable 6.78-inch 120Hz AMOLED screen. On the top left, there is a pill-shaped cutout for the camera, which has two front-facing cameras. It's not for face unlock, though. One of them is a 60-megapixel selfie camera with a 100-degree field of vision, while the other is a 2x telephoto lens. However, the back is where the bling really shines. A gold ring surrounds the camera module, and the principal sensor in the middle of the camera island is also encircled by gold. The company's Nova logo is imprinted at the bottom of the phone in gold on a somewhat textured metal of some kind. Although I think the camera module is a touch ugly, overall I think it looks fine. I suppose the appearance is youthful, which is certainly what Huawei was looking for. Apart from how extravagant it all is, I don't really have many complaints about how it feels in the hand. This may be one of my favorite cheap phone appearances this year. If it weren't for the insane gold rings, you may just use the provided case if you'd like because it does a good job of protecting the gold. The display is curved, there are two speakers at the top and bottom, and the haptics are fairly good. At the bottom, there is a fingerprint optical under-display sensor. All of them enhance the phone's luxury feel, especially as curved displays are normally only found on flagship smartphones. Practicality aside, a growing number of mid-range choices have entered the market. To be fair to Huawei, the business hasn't actually gotten out of the photography business. The camera technology of the Nova 10 Pro is rather impressive. However, the front-facing camera system, which is a 60MP ultra-wide sensor, has some of the most potent camera hardware. It's a good-looking, fairly high-quality sensor, and I believe it makes sense for the audience this product is intended for. The 2x telephoto lens on the front-facing camera is another great feature. Have you ever watched a social media video when the person is zooming in on something behind them? That is precisely the purpose of it. Although it's not really my style, it makes perfect sense to have it in a phone geared toward younger people. The quality isn't bad either, and the ultra-width wides is excellent for capturing a large group of people in one picture. The uncompressed copies of the selfies are available in the Flickr album, but the compressed ones are shown below. Last but not least, the cameras on the back are also rather impressive. They thrived in low light, and when I went for a nighttime walk, I took some fairly stunning pictures. Strangely, I encountered some oddness when photographing the sky during the day, but I anticipate that these can be worked out with time. The Flickr album that is attached below allows you to view uncompressed pictures. EMUI 12 is pre-installed on the Huawei Nova 10 Pro and is based on Android 12. You already know that there aren't any Google Play services, therefore you'll have to use Huawei's own app gallery to download apps. It does become better over time, no doubt about that. You may get regionally tailored apps in the market, and every day, more and more apps are being added, even while several Irish and German banks are still inaccessible on it. The situation is unquestionably better than it was previously. Sadly, despite all the work and advancement made, it's still difficult to suggest a Huawei phone to most people. It's getting there, and I finally understand the company's HMS efforts, but it's not there yet for everyone to be able to use a Huawei phone. Although there are less expensive solutions available that can accomplish much of what Huawei can, Google Play services make switching and getting all of your favorite apps just as simple as ever. Curve Pay does, however, fill in some of the holes. Previously, I was unable to make the transfer largely because of it. The issue is that moving to a Huawei phone involves entering a completely other environment. For argument's sake, a user could transition from Android to Huawei's EMUI in the same manner that a user may convert from Android to iPhone. It's all Android, but the transition to EMUI is much bigger. and necessitates becoming familiar with a completely different environment that has its own oddities. You won't have access to all of your apps when you convert to an iPhone, but there are a ton of substitutes available in the App Store. That would work, though, provided all necessary apps were available on App Gallery. I would be interesting if my banking apps were available on App Gallery. I could regularly use my phone to make purchases, and I could simply access my emails on my phone. Now that I know what Huawei is aiming for, I can say that it is the development of a totally new ecosystem. It's definitely not Apple, and it's certainly not Android. Well, it is, but it's not the same environment. A third player is what Huawei aspires to be. Although it's progressing, most individuals find it difficult to justify a transition until the problems are worked out. However, as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. Therefore, I think having a third participant in the market is healthy competition. Who knows what the future may bring for App Gallery? It might not be great right now. The Snapdragon 778G in the Huawei Nova 10 Pro's 4G configuration is a very capable processor. In everyday use, there won't be any issues at all, and it can handle almost anything you can throw at it. When shooting pictures and switching between apps, the camera viewfinder has been the only area of this smartphone that occasionally and briefly lags, but it comes with a fairly weak GPU. As is the case with this chipset, this phone won't be used for gaming because the Adreno 642L lags behind many of the competitors and can't handle heavy usage. When I tried this chipset in the Honor 70, it had trouble even maintaining constant frame rates at the game's lowest settings. Genshin Impact. Unless you're a casual gamer, you should avoid this phone if you want a phone for gaming. You'll be able to play games like Call of Duty or Temple Run, but the visual settings will need to be somewhat lowered. However, using your phone in typical situations won't cause you any issues. All of your online activities, browsing, texting, and photo taking will go off without a hitch. For those who simply use their phones regularly and don't do anything particularly demanding, this is an excellent chipset. The charging speed of the Huawei Nova 10 Pro is another noteworthy aspect. With the 100-watt charger included in the box, charging this phone from 0 to 100% will take 20 minutes. Given that the target market is people who are constantly on the go and they need to charge their phones in short bursts at a time, a quick charging speed like this makes sense. Additionally, both the CPU and Huawei's own EMUI software have respectable battery life. The battery on this phone was enough during the few days I used it as my primary phone, and it could last me a whole day, but because I couldn't use all of my apps, it was very different from how I would normally use other phones. Your results will therefore undoubtedly vary. Similar to every Huawei product released in the last 2 years, the Huawei Nova 10 Pro has issues that make it difficult to recommend to almost anyone. I genuinely adore the Huawei P50 Pro that I reviewed earlier this year, and I'm really starting to understand what the company is doing with App Gallery. Despite all of that, I'm finding it really challenging right now to make the jump to full-time. Even though it is coming closer to having all I need, it is not quite there. In other words, it's difficult to suggest it until it gets there. Although the cameras on this phone are fantastic, I'm not sure how to suggest it given its price. $699 is rather pricey for what's on offer here, and potential difficulties for average consumers. Perhaps selling this phone would be simpler if Revolut was your primary bank, and you didn't care about receiving email notifications on time. But at the moment, it isn't. I would really like for it to be. For what it's worth, this phone is a sign that Huawei is paying attention, and that progress is being made. There are Irish versions of apps on App Gallery, which is really astounding to me. App Gallery is becoming better every day, and with localized approaches to each application service, it's starting to get to the point where I think I can suggest it, although that time hasn't come yet. Having a strong competition in the market is at the very least beneficial for customers. This phone offers enough distinctive features that I believe Huawei is beginning to understand that in order to succeed, it needs to identify a profitable niche. Write your opinion about the new smartphone. I would be interested to know your opinion. Have a nice day and see you soon.